Hello all. So here in this video lecture we are continuing the 6th unit. With this we will be completing the unit biodiversity as well. Okay. So IUCN and red list categories. First of all, I'll be providing you many other notes and information which are not in the slides. So kindly be present with a pen and paper. So we can start. So first of all, IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. The abbreviation can be provided, and questions, the full form questions can be asked, MCQs or fill in the blanks or anything. Okay, so IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. It is an international organization working in the field of conservation of nature. It is the global authority on the status of the natural world and the measures needed to safeguard it. So IUCN was established in 1948 in France. It was previously called International Union for the Protection of Nature and World Conservation Union. Then it was called World Conservation Union. After that, it came to the name International Union for Conservation of Nature. So first, International Union for the Protection of Nature. I guess I mistaked it. So the first, till 1956, it was called International Union for the Protection of Nature. After that, it was called, till 2008, it was called World Conservation Union. Then it is now been named, been known as International Union for the Conservation of Nature. It is composed of both government and civil society organization, headquartered at Switzerland. Okay, so these are just for the information I said. It's not that important, but you can note if you want. Next is at present. Okay, now 9 red list categories of species are recognized under IUCN. 9 red list categories of species. Okay. The red data list of Red Book include mainly the threatened species, which is group of 3 categories: critically endangered, endangered and vulnerable. We can check them. Okay, so first of all, these are the 9 red list category species, not species, what the terminology is, list 9 red list categories of species. Yeah, that itself. So first of all species, in that not evaluated, then data efficient, that is evaluated. Under evaluated things there are data efficient, least concern, then near threatened, so adequate data and threatened category. So this is the picture. So not evaluated, data efficient, least concern, near threatened, vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, extinct in the world, extinct in the wild, then extinct. Okay, so the red list contains critically endangered, endangered and vulnerable. Red data book contains critically endangered, endangered and vulnerable. We can have a check on what these things are. So first of all, not evaluated. So this is the category of species which have not yet been evaluated against the IUCN criteria. Then data deficient. It is a condition applied to species in which the amount of available data related to its risk of extinction is lacking in some way. Data is deficient, that's it. Then least concern, category of species that are pervasive and abundant after careful assessment. Then near threatened, category of species that are close to becoming threatened or may meet the criteria for threatened status in the near future. Okay, then comes vulnerable. So in the red data book, as I said, vulnerable, endangered and critically endangered are there. So as the arrow comes here, is increasing the risk of extinction. So the AW, that is extinction in the wild, a species is extinct in the wild when it is known only to survive in cultivation or in captivity or as a naturalized population outside the historic range. Then extinct means a species is considered to be extinct when there is no reasonable doubt that the last individual has died. Dinosaurs. Now in detail we can discuss what vulnerable, endangered and critically endangered are. Okay, I have not provided them in the slides, so let's discuss. Note them down. That is really important. Questions can ask with all probability, can come from this part, and for the practicals also. So first, critically endangered. A species is critically endangered when it possesses an extremely high risk of extinction. The criteria include population reduction more than 90%, 90%, geographic range in the form, occurrence less than 1000 kilometers square, and area of occupancy less than 10 kilometer square. You can leave that data, but you have to mention that population reduction measured over the length of 10 years or 3 generations is less than 90%. If it have to be critically endangered, the population of that particular species have to be reduced less than 90%. This have to be measured over the length of 10 years or 3 generations of that particular species. Okay. Then next is endangered species. Category of species that possesses a very high risk of extinction. Okay. For here, the population reduction measured over the length of 10 years or 3 generations must be less than, must be greater than 70%. Okay. In critically endangered species, population reduction greater than 90%. Okay. Greater than 90%. If I have misunderstood it as lesser than, I am really sorry for the mistake. Population reduction greater than 90%. In endangered species, population reduction greater than 70%. Then vulnerable species. It is the category of species that possess a high risk of endangerment. Here the population reduction measured over the length of 10 years or 3 generations is greater than, higher than 50%. Okay. So that's it then on IUCN. Yeah, I have provided the definitions as well here. You can take a screenshot and note them down. Extinct. A species is extinct when there is no reasonable doubt that the last individual has died. Extinct in wild means exhaustive survey, it is extinct in the wild when exhaustive surveys and non are expected habitats have failed to record an individual. Then critically endangered, facing an extremely high risk. Population reduction. For critically endangered, the population reduction is greater than 90%. For endangered, facing a high risk of extinction in the wild in the near future. Population reduction greater than 70%. Vulnerable, facing a very high risk of extinction in the wild in the medium term future. Population reduction greater than 50%. Then last, near threatened, least concerned, data deficient, not evaluated, we discussed. Threatened species of India. India has 614 animal species on IUCN Red List categories. It contains more than 321 globally threatened plant species. Thousands of animals, of plants and animals are endangered, and the number increases each year. Unknown number of species of insects are endangered. List of threatened plant species of India. Critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable. I am not reading them out. Definitely it will be because the pronunciations are as a Herculean task here, so you can note them down. Critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable. The scientific names are here, that's why. Then list of threatened animal species. Critically endangered, Malabar large spotted civet, Namdapha flying squirrel, Plungi hog, Sumatran rhinoceros. Then endangered, Asian elephant, lion-tailed macaque, red panda, Indian rhinoceros. Then vulnerable, Asiatic black bear, Asiatic wild ass, black buck, wild yak. Then endangered species. Ganges river dolphin, Amur tiger, Royal Bengal tiger, bluefin tuna, blue whale, black-footed ferret. Note them the okay. You can note these down. Then again endemic species. Note them. Note down them. Now some specific taxon. So taxon means what to say, the classification, the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genes, species, that class order, taxon. Okay. So types of species: high impact species. Categories are like the three categories are like keystone species, umbrella species, flagship species. Okay. Now, high impact species, keystone species. Okay. Removal of species affects the persistence of others and impact disproportionate abundance. Palm and fig trees are Peruvian in the rainforest are an example for this. Next is conservation focus species, that is umbrella species. Okay. Protection of its occupancy area encapsulates other species as well. The protected range of large mammals and birds become reserves for other species with smaller ranges. Okay. Next is flagship species, popular, charismatic, to stimulate conservation awareness and action. Condors, pandas, rhinos, large cats, large primates, orchids, cactus, and everything. You might know the what to say, the logos or emblems of flagship species. Keystones, so detailed. Keystone species are species whose roles have a large effect on the types and abundance of other species in an ecosystem. They can play several critical roles to help to sustain ecosystem. One such role is pollination of flowering plant species by bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, bats, and other species. In addition, top predator keystone species feed on and help to regulate the population of other species. Alligator, wolf, leopard, lion, and some shark species are an example for this. The loss of a keystone species can lead to population crashes and extinction of other species in a community that depends on it for certain ecological services. This is why it is important for scientists to identify and protect keystone species. Next is some common plant species. You can note them down. Next is some common animal species: mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, invertebrates, marine life. Note them down as well. Next is biodiversity conservation strategies. Okay. Yeah, we are done with this now. This is really important. Questions have come from this part for exams in MCQs and short essays as well. Sorry. So in situ conservation. In situ conservation means the conservation of a species in its natural habitat and the maintenance and recovery of viable population of species in their original place. The modes of in situ conservation are national park, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, conservation reserves, community reserves, marine protected areas. Okay. Then ex situ conservation. So it is the process, or a technique of conservation of biological diversity outside its natural habitat, targeting all levels of biodiversity such as genetic, species, and ecosystem. There are two kinds of ex situ conservation: botanical garden, three kinds: botanical gardens, gene banks, zoological park. Okay, not disturbable down. Take a screenshot as well. Now, national parks. This is an area dedicated for the conservation of wildlife along its environment. It is also made for enjoyment through tourism with its environment. There are 104 existing national parks in India, covering an area of 40,501 kilometers square, which is 1.23% of geographical area of the country. In addition to the above 75 national parks covering an area of 16,608 kilometers square are proposed in the Protected Area Network report. The network of parks will go up 179 after full implementation of the above report. The Jim Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand was the first national park established in India. Manas National Park, Assam, is in the house of approximately 20 highly endangered species such as Hispite hare, pygmy hawk, etc. Now, some important national parks. Kaziranga National Park. So this can be asked for match the following as well as MCQs also. Kaziranga in Assam, one-horned rhino is the important wildlife here. Gir National Park, Gujarat, Indian lion. Dachigam, J&K, Hangul. Bandipur National Park in Karnataka, elephants. Periyar National Park in Kerala for elephants and tigers. Khana National Park in Madhya Pradesh for tigers. Corbett National Park in Uttar Pradesh. Dudhwa National Park in Uttar Pradesh, mainly focusing on tigers. Ranthambore and Sariska National Park in Rajasthan, focusing on tigers as well. Okay. Now, a wildlife sanctuary. A wildlife sanctuary are also protected areas where killing, hunting, shooting or capturing of wildlife is prohibited except under the control of highest authority. Okay. Now some databases are also provided, but that's not that important in examination perspective. You can read them out. Some important wildlife sanctuaries of India. First is Ghana Bird Sanctuary of Rajasthan. 300 species of including migratory birds. Then Hazaribagh Sanctuary in Bihar, focusing on tiger and leopard. Then Sultanpur Bird Sanctuary in Haryana, focusing on migratory birds. Nal Sarovar Bird Sanctuary in Gujarat, focusing on water birds. Abohar Wildlife Sanctuary in Tamil Nadu, focusing on tiger, elephant, leopard. Vedangal Bird Sanctuary in Tamil Nadu, focusing on water bird. Jaldapara Wild Sanctuary, West Bengal, rhinoceros, elephant, tigers. Wild Ass Sanctuary in Gujarat, as the name says, wild ass, wolf, nilgai, shingara. Next is biosphere reserves. They conserve some representative ecosystem as a whole for long-term in situ conservation. The biosphere reserves are sites established by countries and recognized under UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program. Program of Biosphere Reserve was initiated by UNESCO in 1971. There are network of 631 biosphere reserves in 119 countries in the world. 9 out of 18 biosphere reserves in India are the part of this network. Within the biosphere reserves, there may have one or more national parks. Example, Nilgiri Biosphere Reserves has 2 national parks, Bandipur and Nadarhole National Park. Note them down as well. Ex situ conservation, discussed it already. This is an artificial conservation of those species which are so close to extinction in the future. This type of strategy is known as ex situ conservation, where the species are conserved outside its natural habitat and carefully controlled situation. This type of strategy is very helpful for conservation of crop varieties, the wild relatives of crops and all the local varieties, by conserving the total genetic variability of the crop species for future crop improvement or afforestation programs. Ex situ conservation of plant genetic resources can be achieved through different methods such as gene sanctuaries, seed banks, field gene banks, Then in vitro storage methods, pollen banks, DNA banks. A place where germ plasma is conserved in the form of seeds is called seed gene bank. Seed gene bank is the easiest way to store germ plasma of wild and cultivated plant at low temperature in cold rooms. Preservation of genetic resources is also carried out in the field. Gene banks under normal growing condition in the case of plants which do not produce seeds. Bananas example. In India, there are some gene banks. National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources in New Delhi, and seeds, pollen, etc. preserved by cryopreservation by using liquid nitrogen at temperature as low as cryopreservation. Okay, cryopreservation. It is preserved by cryopreservation at a temperature low as minus 196 degrees Celsius in vitro storage method. Then National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources in Karnal, Haryana, preserve genes of domesticated bovine animals. Then National Facility for Plant Tissue Culture Repository provide facility for the conservation of varieties of crops, trees by tissue culture. Then DNA bank help to regenerate whole plants, but the genetic material can be introduced to other genotypes for plant breeding and enhancement purposes. Next is botanical garden. There are various botanical gardens and zoological parks established for conservation of flora and fauna in artificial condition. Botanical gardens mainly use the research and educational purpose. First botanical garden in the country is in Nashik. There are a lot of zoological park or zoo as well. The oldest zoo in India is Junagadh Zoo. Now, Beach Bachao Andolan began in the late 1980s, led by farmer and social activist Vijay Jardhari. The Andolan started in the village Jardhar Gavon of district Theri, Uttaranchal, famous for its unique movement to save the traditional seeds of the hills. Then Project Tiger. During the tenure of the late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, an ambitious project to protect the population of tigers in India was launched in 1972 and launched on the 1st April 1973 at Jim Corbett National Park at Uttaranchal. Project Tiger scheme has been under implementation since 1973 as a centrally sponsored scheme of Government of India. Then goals and objectives. Project Tiger was meant to identify the limiting factors and to mitigate them by suitable management. The damages done to the habitat were to be rectified so as to facilitate the recovery of the ecosystem to the maximum possible extent. The project aims at tiger conservation in specifically constituted tiger reserves falling in regions within India. It strives to maintain a viable tiger population in the natural environment. Now, vulture breeding program. What is vulture? Okay. Vultures are scavenging birds found on every continent except Antarctica and Australia. Characteristic of many vultures is a bald head devoid of normal feathers. Mystery, myth and legend. Earlier considered sacred in Hindu mythology, the bird died while trying to rescue Sita, the wife of Hindu god King Ram. Now unpopular, dismissed as dirty scavengers, used as a metaphor for those who prey on the weak or dying, associated with negative connotations of covered eyes and selfishness. Okay, that is what vulture is. Now about the program. The Vulture Conservation Breeding Center is a joint project of the Haryana Forest Department and the Bombay Natural History Society. It is a collaborative initiative to save the three species of vultures: white-backed, long-billed, slender-billed, from looming extinction. The Vulture Conservation Breeding Center, earlier known as Vulture Care Center, was established in September 2001. The center played an important role in confirming that diclofenac and a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug given to cattle to treat pain and inflammation was the main cause of vulture mortality and population crash in vultures. So that's it. We are done with the 6th unit or 2nd unit of EVS 2 as well. In the next video lecture we can start with the 7th unit. That is the last unit of EVS. Okay, so thank you. Happy learning.